The world was flat until two brothers from Dayton, Ohio dared to prove it wasn't. Against all odds, they pedaled their way to success. But their journey didn't end there. It was just the beginning. Yeah, this is the incredible story of the Wright brothers, two bicycle mechanics who took on the impossible and changed the course of history. Hello friends, welcome to Entrepreneurial Times, purely dedicated to providing you with valuable insights and practical advice from the inspiring success stories of individuals and businesses. The Wright brothers' contribution to aviation is far more than just inventing the airplane. Fixed-wing aircraft had in fact been around for almost a century before their successful flights. However, what sets them apart was their ability to design and build a flying aircraft with controls that could navigate in all three dimensions. This idea has revolutionized not only the aerospace industry, but also spacecraft, submarines, and even robots. The flight also changed our perspective of the world, making distances seem smaller and the world more interconnected. Thanks to the Wright brothers' perseverance and innovative minds, as their legacy includes immense contributions to the world economy, environmental awareness, and space exploration. But how did it all come to pass? Join us as we follow their epic journey from pedaling bikes to defying gravity. This is the untold story of the Wright brothers' unwavering perseverance against impossible odds. Let's get started with their early life. Wilbur Wright, the middle child of a family of five, was born on April 16, 1867, near Melville, Indiana. His father, Milton Wright, was a bishop in the Church of the United Brethren in Christ, and his mother was Susan Catherine Corner. The family then moved to Dayton, Ohio, where Wilbur grew up alongside his younger brother, Orville Wright, born in 1871. As children, the two were inseparable and shared a fascination with small toys their father brought back from his frequent travels. Like he once brought them a model helicopter based on a design by French aeronautical pioneer Alphonse Pinot, powered by a rubber band to twirl its blades. The simple toy sparked a lifelong passion for aeronautics and flying in Wilbur and Orville, who would go on to achieve unimaginable heights in aviation history. To your surprise, Wilbur and Orville were the only members of the Wright family who didn't pursue higher education or get married. Wilbur's hopes of attending Yale University were dashed after he was badly hurt in an accident during an ice hockey game. He then dedicated the following 3 years to recuperating, immersing himself in reading materials from his father's collection, and helping the bishop with legal and ecclesiastical matters. During this time, he also tended to his ailing mother, who passed away from tuberculosis in 1889. Following their mother's death, Orville, who had previously spent a few summers learning the printing trade, convinced Wilbur to start a print shop with him. Apart from providing printing services, the brothers also published 2 local newspapers, which unfortunately had a brief run. Meanwhile, the Wright brothers' reputation grew locally due to the excellent quality of the printing presses they created, sold, and designed for other printers. These machines were one of the first displays of the brothers' remarkable technical skills and their unconventional problem-solving techniques in mechanical design. The brothers also shared a passion for bicycles, a new craze that was sweeping the country. This led the brothers to establish a bike shop in 1892, fixing bicycles and selling their own design later, as they began to build bicycles on a small scale in 1896. So the profits from the print shop and bike business provided the funding for the Wright brothers' aeronautical experiments later. They had also installed light machine tools in their bike shop and developed their own self-oiling bicycle wheel hub. Through their experience in designing and building lightweight, precise machines using wood, wire, and metal tubing, they acquired the necessary skills for constructing flying machines. The Wright brothers, as I mentioned earlier, attributed their fascination with flight to a small helicopter toy their father had brought home. They also read about the work of German glider pioneer Otto Lilienthal, but it was the news of Lilienthal's fatal crash in a glider in August 1896 that sparked their serious interest in aviation. By 1899, the brothers had exhausted the resources of their local library and sought further reading suggestions from the Smithsonian Institution. The following year, they introduced themselves to Octave Chanute, a renowned civil engineer and aviation expert who would become a trusted advisor to the brothers during the crucial years from 1900 to 1905. And if we talk of the competition, the early 20th century was marked by an intense competition among inventors, investors, and even countries to build the first successful airplane. Though the Wright brothers are credited with achieving this feat in 1903, their success was not easy, and it was the result of years of hard work and fierce competition among numerous investors, scientists, and aviation enthusiasts. This competition began in the late 1800s, with inventors from around the world experimenting with gliders and other flying machines. The French, for instance, had several pioneers, including Clement Ader, who claimed to have flown a steam-powered airplane in 1890. and Octave Chanute, an American-born engineer who inspired the Wright brothers. In the United States, Samuel Langley, a professor of astronomy, and Glenn Curtiss, a motorcycle racer, were among the most notable competitors. The competition intensified in the early 1900s, with inventors and investors pouring significant amounts of money and resources in their respective projects. This race to build the first airplane became a historic competition, sparking intense rivalries and garnering widespread attention. Despite the challenges they faced, the Wright brothers ultimately succeeded in making the first powered flight, paving the way for modern aviation. But how? Let's see their early glider experiments. The Wright brothers' expertise in analyzing mechanical problems and finding solutions was evident from the outset of their work in aeronautics. They'd recognized that a successful airplane required wings, and propulsion system, and a method for controlling the aircraft. They identified control as the final issue to be solved and decided to manipulate the center of pressure on the wings through a technique called wing warping. In 1899, the brothers conducted their initial experiments with wing warping using a small biplane kite. They designed their first full-scale glider using Lilienthal's data to determine the amount of wing surface area necessary to lift the machine and the pilot's estimated weight in a wind of a particular velocity. They selected Kitty Hawk, a secluded village on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, for their experiments, as it provided high average winds, tall dunes for gliding, and soft sand for landing. Then in October 1900, the Wrights tested their first glider, but it generated less lift than anticipated, and few free flights were made with a pilot on board. Nonetheless, they gathered information on the machine's performance, which would be crucial in designing future aircraft. In July and August of 1901, the Wrights increased the wing area of their next machine and completed 50 to 100 glides. While it was an improvement over its predecessor, the 1901 Wright aircraft still did not perform as well as their calculations had predicted, and the problems of control were not entirely resolved. Meanwhile, Wilbur accepted an invitation to speak at the Western Society of Engineers and delivered a talk in Chicago on September 18, 1901, entitled Some Aeronautical Experiments, which showcased the Wright brothers' progress beyond other flying machine experimenters. However, despite setbacks, the Wright brothers continued their aeronautical experiments and eventually succeeded with their flyer in 1903. Let's now see, how did they solve the issues with lift and control? Well, the Wright brothers had now realized the data published by their predecessors had errors, which caused their gliders to perform poorly. To rectify this, they built a wind tunnel to collect their own information on the behavior of model wings in an airstream. Their ingenuity was evident in the design of their wind tunnel balances, which measure the forces acting on the model wings. They tested between 100 and 200 wing designs in the wind tunnel, determining the relative efficiencies of various airfoils and studying the effects of different wing shapes, tip designs, and gap sizes. And with the results of the wind tunnel tests, they constructed their third full-scale glider, which they tested in September and October of 1902. The machine performed exactly as predicted, allowing the brothers to complete 700 to 1,000 flights, covering distances up to 622.5 feet, and remaining in the air for as long as 26 seconds. This resulted in them gaining significant experience in the air. They also added a movable rudder linked to the wing warping system, completing their control system. Moving on to their powered and sustained flight. So after resolving major aerodynamic and control problems, the Wright brothers turned their attention to designing and constructing their first powered aircraft. To achieve this, they enlisted the help of a machinist named Charles Taylor, whom they knew since their bicycle days, and built a 4-cylinder internal combustion engine. Utilizing the knowledge gained from their wind tunnel data, they designed twin-pusher propellers based on the principles of rotary wings. In September 1903, the brothers returned to their camp near Kill Devil Hills and spent 7 weeks assembling, testing, and repairing their powered machine while conducting new flight tests with a 1902 glider. On December 14th, Wilbur attempted the first powered flight but stalled the aircraft on takeoff, damaging its forward section. After 3 days of repairs and waiting for favorable weather, Orville successfully completed the first powered flight on December 17, 1903, covering 120 feet in 12 seconds. Wilbur and Orville then made additional flights, with Wilbur flying 175 feet in 12 seconds on his first attempt and Orville flying 200 feet in 15 seconds on his second attempt. Wilbur's fourth and final flight of the day lasted 59 seconds and covered a distance of 852 feet. All 4 flights were witnessed by 5 local citizens. This marked the first powered and sustained flight of a heavier-than-air machine under the complete control of the pilot. Over the next 2 years, the Wrights continued to build and fly more aircraft from Huffman Prairie near Dayton, improving their design and gaining skill and confidence in the air. By October 1905, they were able to remain aloft for up to 39 minutes, performing various maneuvers. However, they decided to cease flying and remain on the ground until they could protect their invention through patents and negotiate a contract for its sale, as they were also concerned about others copying their essential features. Well, it was time now to make the invention public. Though the Wright brothers faced skepticism over their claim to have flown first between 1906 to 1907, they persisted in securing deals with financiers and government agents in both the United States and Europe. Then in May 1908, they returned to Kiel Devil Hills and made 22 flights with their modified 1905 airplane, which now had upright seating and had controls. Wilbur then sailed to France and made a sensational first public flight, captivating the European imagination. He continued to fly in France and Rome, while Orville began U.S. Army trials in Fort Myer, Virginia. Unfortunately, during the trials, Orville and his passenger Lieutenant Thomas E. Selfridge crashed, and Selfridge was killed. Orville recovered from his injuries, and he and Wilbur returned to Fort Myer in 1909 to complete the trials. They exceeded the required speed of 40 miles per hour and earned a $5,000 bonus on top of the $25,000 contract price. Orville then traveled to Germany to fly at Berlin and Potsdam, while Wilbur flew several important flights as part of New York City's Hudson Fountain celebration before going to College Park, Maryland, where he taught the first 3 U.S. Army officers to fly. Let's talk about business now. Well, the Wright Company was established in 1909, where Wilbur and Orville always shared credit for their innovations and maintained a close relationship throughout their lives. Behind the scenes, however, there was a division of labor. With his sharp instincts, Wilbur was the business mind and executive of the operation, serving as president of the Wright Company. Orville was the vice president, and a board of trustees consisting of prominent American business leaders also pulled in. They built a factory in Dayton and a flying field with a flight school at Huffman Prairie. To generate more revenue, they formed the Wright Exhibition Company in March 1910, with Orville training pilots for the team at Montgomery and Huffman Prairie. The Exhibition Company made its debut in June 1910 in Indianapolis and ended in November 1911 following the deaths of several team members. And after 1909, Wilbur focused more on business and legal activities, leading lawsuits against rival aircraft builders in the United States and Europe for patent infringement. However, their pursuit of international patent rights significantly impacted their public image. Although they were once regarded as mechanical geniuses, they were now accused of holding back the advancement of flight technology by suing other experimenters. The era of lawsuits ended in 1917 when the Wright patents expired in France and the U.S. government established a patent pool for national defense. The Wright Company's flight school trained many pilots, including Henry H. Hap Arnold, who later became the commander of the U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II, while on the other hand, the deaths of several members of the exhibition team prompted the Wright brothers to discontinue operations in November 1911. Anyway, in 1912, Wilbur Wright, who had been burdened with legal and business troubles, caught typhoid fever and passed away. And Orville, who had lost his interest in the airline industry, sold the Wright Company in 1916 and returned to his inventing pursuits, started working as a consultant on a range of engineering problems from his laboratory in Dayton, Ohio. He explored various fields, including aerodynamic automobile designs, toy designs, and even invented a cipher machine to encode communications. Orville was also one of the founding board members of the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, or NACA, which later became NASA. He oversaw the Guggenheim Fund for the Promotion of Aeronautics, which helped America regain its technological edge in aviation in the late 1920s. Orville was dedicated to helping unknown investors bring their ideas to the market. However, throughout his life, Orville fought with the Smithsonian for belittling the Wright brothers' contributions to aviation. In response, he sent the 1903 Wright Flyer to the Kensington Science Museum in London. In the 1930s, Charles Lindbergh attempted to reconcile the feud, but it wasn't until 1942 when Fred Kelly convinced the Smithsonian to publish the truth. Orville instructed England to bring the Flyer back to America, and it was finally returned in 1948. Orville's last significant project was a reconstruction of the 1905 Flyer 3, the first practical airplane he and Wilbur had perfected at Huffman Prairie. This was displayed in Deeds Carolyn Park in Dayton, Ohio in 1950, but Orville passed away before the ceremony. He in fact suffered a heart attack in 1948 while fixing the doorbell at his home. So why did the Wright brothers succeed when others failed? Let me help you here. Though they weren't trained as engineers, they were raised to have an insatiable intellectual curiosity, and despite their accomplishments as pioneers of aviation, Wrights remained humble and devoted to advancing the field. Well, this brings us to the end of this video. We hope you liked the video as much as we liked making it for you. If you do, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Feel free to leave a comment below and let us know your opinion on this fascinating story of the Wright brothers. Until next time, stay tuned and don't miss anything on Entrepreneurial Times.